Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to get started here in just a couple minutes. We'll let a few more people join and then we'll get going. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar announcing DigiCert Trust Lifecycle Manager. Joining us today are speakers Dr. Amit Sinha, CEO of DigiCert, Weber Wan, Chief Architect for Assured Identity at IT Department at IBM, and Anthony Ricci, Senior Director of Product Management for Emerging Markets at DigiCert. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us today. Before we get started, I wanted to quickly run through some housekeeping items. First, today's webinar is being recorded and will be sent out after the webinar ends. Number two, if you are having trouble with audio, try refreshing your browser. If the problem persists, message into the chat and we'll help you get it figured out. And number three, please feel free to put any questions in the chat at any point during the webinar, as we are doing a Q&A at this session or at the end of the presentation. Thank you all again for joining us, and I'll turn the time over to Dr. Sinha to get us kicked off.
Thank you, Taylor. Hello, everyone. My name is Amit Sinha, and I'm the CEO of DigiCert. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all attendees joining our webinar today. We are very excited to have Weber Yuan, Chief Architect and Strategy Lead at IBM, joining us today. Weber will discuss how IBM manages digital trust at scale for nearly 300,000 employees and millions of devices. We recently announced the DigiCert Trust Lifecycle Manager. It has set a new bar for unified trust management for organizations. Anthony Ricci, Senior Director of Product Management at DigiCert, will give you a sneak peek into its powerful capabilities. So what is digital trust? Digital trust is the foundation to securing the connected world we live in. Our world today is hyper-connected. Devices are everywhere. People are online constantly. Sensitive data has moved to the cloud. Even core operational technology is now being re-architected as connected infrastructure. Digital trust is what enables us to build, to participate, and to grow this connected world that we now live in. Look around you. How does an airline trust that its mission-critical flight systems have not been compromised? How can a hospital protect patient privacy, yet make critical patient data accessible to caregivers and researchers? How does a consumer device manufacturer guarantee that software running on its devices cannot be tampered with? How does a bank make sure that its users don't get phished? How does a law firm know for a fact that a digital contract was electronically signed by an authorized person? Digital trust is the foundational infrastructure that enables us to have the confidence that all the things that we now do online, whether these are interactions, transactions, or business processes, are secure and trustworthy. So how is digital trust built? A comprehensive digital trust framework has 4 key pillars. You start with robust standards necessary to define trust and make it interoperable. For example, you may decide to use industry standard digital certificates to provide tamper-proof identities for all your users, devices, and workloads. Next, you need rigorous operations and compliance necessary to establish and continuously validate that trust. Leveraging a certificate authority that has proven operational maturity and stringent auditable controls makes that easy. You then need to manage trust across your organization. You may have thousands of certificates and cryptographic assets with different validity periods deployed across a sprawling digital real estate. You need discovery, automation, and integration tools to manage this effectively. And finally, you need the ability to extend trust into your ecosystem and supply chain to leverage the full benefits of trusted digital transformation. Many organizations are now making digital trust a strategic imperative. Why is that? You may have heard or seen critical websites and services go down, or an expensive compliance failure because of an expired digital certificate. Studies have estimated that the economic loss due to certificate or PKI-related outages or compliance failures can be north of $10 million for large businesses. Some of you may have heard of the massive Equifax data breach, where hackers stole sensitive personal information of more than 150 million users. One of the root causes was an expired digital certificate used by a critical network security device that the company failed to discover and fix. The average cost of a data breach is significant, and it continues to rise. We recently conducted a digital survey and published a comprehensive report. You can get a copy of that from our website. One of the key findings was that 47% of customers reported that they switched vendors due to a loss of trust. IDC analyst Jennifer Glenn recently published an excellent white paper titled Digital Trust, the Foundation for Digital Freedom. You can also get a copy of that from our website. It defines the 4 essential building blocks of digital trust that we just talked about, and the benefits of making it a strategic imperative in your organization. Those tangible benefits include reliable uptime, reduced risk of data compromise, and improved user trust. DigiCert recently surveyed 400 large global organizations to better understand the specific challenges they are facing around digital trust. 67% of companies reported that they experienced at least one significant certificate or PKI-related service outage in the last year. 25% said they experienced more than 5 outages in the prior 6 months alone. A typical enterprise in our survey managed more than 50,000 digital certificates across multiple departments. Most of them reported that they frequently encountered unmanaged rogue certificates, which was a major security concern. A typical Fortune 500 organization can have more than 50,000 employees, each with multiple devices accessing corporate resources. Securing and managing this is very challenging. The overall volume of cryptographic assets across users, devices, workloads, and content can easily be in the hundreds of thousands. Finally, the pandemic has permanently altered the workforce, driving adoption of cloud and mobility. Since 2019, there has been a 3x increase in the number of remote workers for companies. All of this points to increasing risk and complexity in certificate management and PKI administration. Increasing demands for digital trust are being felt in every functional lane in IT. Infrastructure teams are seeing increasing risk as certificate validity periods drop. Workloads are moving to the cloud, and they often are very short-lived. This makes it necessary for DevOps teams to automate the issuance and deployment of certificates. Identity and access management teams are facing increased complexity as remote workers and zero trust initiatives are being implemented. The volume and methods of authentication needed to protect corporate users, assets, and data are growing rapidly. SecOps teams are facing a growing threat landscape. They need to respond quickly to identified vulnerabilities. Quantum computing is on the horizon, and that could render many current ciphers obsolete. This is forcing organizations to adopt crypto agility to address an uncertain security landscape that may need sweeping, immediate changes to digital certificates. OT and industrial IoT teams need to protect the growing attack surface created as millions of new and poorly managed devices are proliferating and connecting to the network. Certificates across users, devices, and cloud workloads play a critical role for authentication, authorization, and encryption. Organizations want to implement strong security controls, but they also want great user experience for their employees and customers. With all of these changes taking place, digital trust has steadily moved away from being an administrative initiative to a strategic one. And now I'd like to invite Weber Yuan, Chief Architect and Strategy Lead at IBM, to share his perspectives. Weber, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experience, our lessons learned.
It's our pleasure. And again, thank you for making time. So talk to us about IBM's scale and some of the challenges. What are some of the broad identity and digital trust initiatives you're driving?
Sure. So, IBM is very big. We're a globally integrated enterprise. I think the number of employees you list over there is true according to our latest earnings report. But I want to remind everyone, up till November 4, 2021, little over years ago, we had that was before our big spin-off of our managed infrastructure service into a separate company called Kyndryl. We had 400,000 employees, right? So the scale is definitely a unique challenge. And the other aspect of the scale and the unique challenge is that we operate in over 100 countries, and that spreads across all time zones. So from an IT department perspective, the maintenance window, the service needs to be always on pretty much. You don't really have the luxury of shutting it down, get like a 2 days weekend for maintenance. From a support perspective, you need to do the follow the sun. And I think you mentioned at the beginning that in terms of the devices, we got like over 1 million devices, and that a mixture of all kinds of devices: Windows 10, Mac, Linux, mobile, iOS, Android. So it's a very complex picture. So all this, I think, represents a very unique challenge to us to provide the best in breed services to our users, so they can be productive, they can serve our customers better, and so we can do more with less. So the bar is pretty high. In terms of the key broad identity and the digital trust initiatives we're driving, obviously, one key theme is cloud adoption and modernization of applications, right? So we help our customers to do, application modernization internally as an IT group. We are doing the same thing, and that includes the multi-cloud, the hybrid cloud strategy, IBM is focusing on, as well as multi-cloud, meaning, as we announced last year, IBM software as a service offering will be offered as a cloud native SaaS with AWS, Azure. So multi-cloud, cloud adoption, application modernization, and multi-cloud strategy, and the associated identity, access, digital trust is a key theme. The other key theme is merger and acquisition, right? As I mentioned that the Kyndryl, 100,000 users, that's a massive merger and acquisition. So things like that.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating, Weber. 300,000 employees, give or take 100,000. I mean, that's massive scale, right? And we do see these types of challenges in bigger organizations. M&A leads to more IT complexity. And then, of course, making sure that that entire huge employee base is having an awesome user experience is challenging. So talk to me, I'm sure through the pandemic, many of these employees became remote workers, and you were able to make access, whether it was Wi-Fi, VPN, etc., pretty much invisible and very secure for IBM employees. So how did you do that, and what were some of the lessons learned through the process?
Sure. So the first thing I want to kind of share with everyone is that, yes, what we come up with for our users, for the company, has served us really well during the pandemic, but the journey starts before the pandemic. We actually no one anticipated a pandemic like COVID-19. So when we started the journey, the challenge we were facing was that, first of all, from network access, Wi-Fi, VPN perspective, as showing on this chart, we were using very edging, not secure enough protocols like password authentication, like protocols like Leap, and that has a lot of issues, right? Security is a concern, but user experience and productivity is also a huge drag. Right. And so that's kind of one of the things that prompts us to reimagine the identity access and network access solutions. The other driver is directly related to the what we benefit from for remote workers during the pandemic. But at that time, the driver was not really COVID-19, because that was before COVID-19. But the driver was that, in terms of like a new hire onboarding and device onboarding, the old model was HR to get people into, a location, have everybody plug in their laptop into Ethernet ports inside the conference room. Then, that's how you bootstrap everything. Even at that time, we realized that we have this model, especially with business units like IBM Consulting, they don't always have the luxury to get people into a conference room to do this. So what's really needed is a new transformative onboarding experience that, I give you a factory image of a workstation. You start from there, you try to talk to our devices registration services, which is accessible from internet. And then you go from there, right? So once we know who you are, this is the company issued workstation, the VPN Wi-Fi services will be seamlessly provisioned to you with a digital certificate under the hood as the foundational piece for enabling this service. So that was a hugely popular and give us great productivity boost. And we joked that we turned PKI from public key infrastructure to public key invisible. It's true in the sense that our users no longer need to worry about, I have a digital certificate which enables the service. The fact that the solution just seamlessly say, hey, you are a IBM employee in good standing, you are entitled to have Wi-Fi and VPN accesses. And I will just push this access to you, or you can go to our PC at IBM or Mac at IBM App Store, say, I need this thing. And by the way, you can totally do this outside the company network. So I think that's what's very transformative, great productivity boost. And when the the unexpected pandemic hits us, and the solution just served us super well because you totally can bootstrap new hires without forcing them to come to a conference room on premise. So let me pause here. Is there any, I should say, I'm not watching the clock, but I should say that the way, how we do this, right? So, there's a couple of key things, right? So this is, obviously a close collaboration between the identity team, the identity and access team, the networking team, and also the device teams. And the way we delivered this creative solution is that we have mobile device management solution or unified endpoint management solution that fully takes care of the life cycle of digital certificate. As I said, that we kind of hide it, right? Mm-hmm. The way we hide it is that, again, to the end users, you are getting wireless access, you are getting VPN access. Yeah. You are not getting a digital certificate. And life cycle management of this is also superb in the sense that, the mobile management device solutions, it renews the expiring certificate on behalf of a user as long as you still work for the company, you're employee in good standing, you have IBM managed workstation. So this network access, Wi-Fi, VPN access is automatically renewed for you. Yeah. So essentially, you never worry about failure. You fail to renew your certificate and cause a network outage, or losing ability to access the company network.
That's great, Weber. I think, I've always been a fan of great security, but more importantly, awesome user experience. And sounds like, you were able to get both. I'm going to use your term PKI, where it's PK invisible. It sounds good, because you are able to do both great security and great user experience. So switching gears a bit, obviously you were able to use DigiCert as kind of the certificate foundation for this. But what makes you excited about DigiCert's Trust Lifecycle Manager announcement? And talk to us about some of the initiatives you're planning to do next.
Sure. So, I think one of the unfinished business, use that word for us in the general digital certificate or digital trust area, is that why we have achieved a great solution, sort of like a close to nirvana state with device, Wi-Fi and VPN accesses. The same cannot be said for TLS / SSL certificates, right? So, but our aspiration and desire state is that we will be able to first have visibility to the total landscape of all the SSL certificates we have, and then on top of that, we want to get our arms around it to impose good control over them. And then further on top of control, I want automation. We want to achieve the same desired state where, as long as TLS certificate still, powers production workload, meaning it's something we still need, that the desire state is to automatically renew expiring certificates, opposed to, manually doing that, and which often cause outage when team fails to stay on top of it, as many of you are aware of, right? Even cloud providers has fallen into that pitfall a couple of times every year. So I think the trust lifecycle manager has the potential to give us the tooling to essentially unify the device and user certificates with our SSL. And on the SSL certificate side, it's a heterogeneous in the sense that, we obviously, like many of the people on the call, purchase SSL certificates from external well-known CAs like DigiCert, but I also have my internal CA. And also in the cloud environment, like IBM Cloud, it allows users to acquire free SSL certificates with free CAs like Let's Encrypt. So if you look at the entire landscape, it's heterogeneous. So the first thing is that, no matter which CA issued the SSL certificate, we need to have visibility to it. It's what I call the VCA, visibility, control, and automation. So that's a key thing, right? The other thing I think, which is also huge, I think you touched the point early on that with the rapid adoption of cloud computing and with the multi-cloud is essentially true for every company, no matter big or small. And I believe I read something on average, company has 20 cloud providers with the infrastructure, platform, and software, lumped together. So in that case, as you mentioned, with the cloud computing, we are seeing emerging and unique challenges that the workload, you use the word short-lived, I believe the other word is ephemeral, right? It's dynamic workload. All this is calling for more advanced tooling to go with this new breed of workload. So that would be the second kind of thing. The third thing is that we are very successful with traditional user devices like a workstation, mobile devices, but we also have the closest to Internet of Things. We got like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands IP phones. We have web export, we got Apple TV, all those, need to be properly managed when they're connecting to the corporate network. And so that's kind of the expansion of the device landscape we are dealing with, traditional workstation. So let me pause here. I think those are a couple of, things that we plan to address. Again, I think the tooling capability, provided by Trust Lifecycle Manager has the potential to help us address those critical business problems.
Awesome. I latched onto three of your keywords: visibility, control, and automation. It makes perfect sense, especially at the scale you mentioned. If you have 10 million certificates and all the complexities that you just talked about, your digital footprint is massive. Some of these are ephemeral. Just being able to have good visibility, control, and automation just makes perfect sense. Thank you, Weber, for sharing those awesome real-world insights. I'm sure our attendees will find it very useful and relevant and applicable to their environments as well.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So now let me give you a quick overview of the DigiCert platform. Trust Lifecycle Manager is part of the broader DigiCert One platform. The platform is built on a modern cloud-native stack and has the ability to extend to your on-prem environment as well. All of you probably know already that DigiCert is a leading certificate and registration authority. Our support and validation services are world-class. The platform provides all the account management services with role-based administration, single sign-on, reporting, and audit logging capabilities that you would expect from a mature enterprise offering supporting very large organizations like IBM. The DigiCert One platform enables enterprise, device, software, content, and DNS trust. Trust Lifecycle Manager is our core enterprise trust offering. It brings together, as Weber mentioned, public and private certificate management and PKI services. It integrates seamlessly with DigiCert's trusted public certificate authority. Customers can now centrally manage all their public and private digital certificates and PKI assets in a unified, flexible architecture that seamlessly integrates with their business processes and systems. Our device trust solution allows you to deploy and manage certificates and identities on millions of IoT devices. Our embedded trust manager takes it further by making sure that authentic software is running on these IoT and OT devices, and that communication is secured even with limited resources on these edge devices. When you publish software, you want to sign it to prevent it from being tampered with and allow devices to authenticate its source. That's where Software Trust Manager comes into play. It integrates seamlessly with your software development tools and CI/CD pipelines. Content Trust covers electronic document signing like PDFs. It can also extend to digital media where you need to guarantee integrity and authenticity of content by its source. Public TLS certificates, as you know, are normally issued for domains. DNS Trust is a managed service delivering industry-leading availability and uptime for authoritative DNS, as well as sophisticated traffic optimization and performance monitoring. Now, to give you a deeper view of enterprise trust and our new Trust Lifecycle Manager, I'd like to now invite Anthony Ricci, Senior Director of Product Management at DigiCert. Anthony, over to you.
Thanks, Amit. Appreciate it. And thanks, Weber, for some of the use cases with IBM. I'm going to probably reference a few of those, Weber, if you don't mind, within my part of the presentation. Let's talk about Trust Lifecycle Manager. At DigiCert here, we're very excited about this product. It was a conglomeration of a lot of different services that have built over the years here at DigiCert, and we combined it into this unified platform that brings together CA-agnostic certificate management and PKI services with our best-in-class public trust, as well as private trust, and delivering central visibility and control over an organization's certificate landscape. So when you think about it, we are kind of combining a lot of the good services that we have within DigiCert. We're tying in, some other CA agnostic or CAs that you may have within your environment to be able to issue through our platform and be able to deliver and automate through it. So that's kind of that unified experience that a lot of our customers are asking for, certainly IBM, with some of their use cases that they noted earlier. So Trust Lifecycle Manager brings together two key components. We just talked about certificate lifecycle management, which is very important for a lot of organizations, whether it's for a private issuance or managing users within your enterprise from an enterprise context perspective, or devices, or as we talked about, TLS certificates, deployment onto servers, load balancers, things of that nature. Very important and very challenging, right? So as Weber stated earlier, which I love that term that you said, the public key, invisible. CLM, crypto agility, and talking through kind of that unified experience revolves around making it PKI easier for our end consumers, which might be, your enterprise users, might be IT operations or DevOps or SecOps, any organization, any team within your organization that has to manage PKI or use PKI for their enterprise solutions. So Trust Lifecycle Manager will make that PKI or public key invisible for you with our solution. Also, I'd like to mention, also our PKI services. It would be amiss if we didn't talk about our, the over the years of how we built these enrollment capabilities and issuance capabilities through our CA management tools, through CA Manager, as well as through our publicly trusted CAs, we're able to kind of facilitate and automate a lot of different issuance of our certificates, as well as third-party CAs into the platform, and have capabilities to kind of tailor the profiles based on the customer's use cases. So really, it's kind of a full-fledged solution to kind of meet all of your PKI needs within an enterprise. You want to move forward on it to the next one? Let's talk a little bit about TLM Lifecycle and how we designed it around the way the customer really looks at their use cases. And again, as Weber from IBM mentioned, VCA, Visibility Control Automation. Love that acronym. But I'm going to add a pen to it, N and E, right? So it's about visibility when we talk about discovery, right? We're actually enabling customers to, in a myriad fashion, to be able to tie in and look within their environment, whether it's port-based scanning, whether it's you talking to your appliances applications, whether it's issuing through auto enrollment or things of that nature, or looking at their CAs, or even doing recursive-based searches on your servers to kind of pull those keys and stores. Discovery is important because it gives the customer insight. So visibility, in our case, discovery is really important, but that's just a conglomeration of a variety of different certificates and keys within your environment. Now you have to bring it into management, which I'll correlate to kind of where Weber is talking about with control. So that's a big deal, right? So management, now you understand your environment. Now, where are the workflows? How are you issuing those certificates? How are you deploying those certificates within your environment? How are your enterprise users consuming it, whether it's S-MIME or using SCEP? So management becomes a really important part for organizations to kind of mitigate a lot of the risks that Amit mentioned earlier, in, to avoid disruption of services or lower TCO for an organization that might not have the PKI expertise, where we can kind of bring that to the table with TLM. And then we look at notifications. So this is where, automation, everyone's looking at that. We want to bring end-to-end solutions and deployment with manual intervention. And, fire and forget technology, deploy and automate is important for a lot of organizations, but that's when it works, right? What happens when it doesn't work? So that's where the notification. So I add, VCA, and then I add N and E is for notification and escalation. So that's where it comes where, let's say automation doesn't work. You deploy an Acme solution and something breaks, firewall or something or an update within the server breaks the connection, right? You want to escalate and deploy. You want to be able to either deploy it to your incident response team, like an IT, or through your ITSM, like ServiceNow, or alert a certain group that needs to take action before there is a disruption service. So what we're trying to do here is empower the organization to keep control of their certificates as we proliferate all these different variety of certificates within your environment, or you are, based on what types of ICAs you're deploying, whether it's private trust or public trust. You want to know, you want visibility into it. And then be able to determine, have next steps and define workflows around it. So when we talk about it, discovery to management, to notification automation, and then finally integration, like as I mentioned, tying into ServiceNow or some of your enterprise IT solutions for a variety of different information, whether it's using your IDP internally to pull information for your users so we can facilitate user enrollment of certificates. That's kind of where that's kind of the beauty of Trust Lifecycle Manager, giving you that full capability to control your environment. Next one on it. So as mentioned earlier, right? So we started, DigiCert. We are a public CA, and we've been doing this for a number of years. So we've evolved and matured a lot of our PKI services, whether it's deployment CAs, root signing ceremonies, or issuing CAs and deploying that within a private trust, or issuing from our public trust. We have a variety of different services that we can offer you. And then the enrollment services around how you issue it, whether it's through automation solutions or APIs or enrollment links that we can deploy for users, or industry leading protocols like SCEP, EST, or Acme solutions. We have a variety of different ways where you can tie in and embed these solutions into, into your appliances applications or your workflows so that it's a seamless integration, creating that invisible factor that Weber was mentioning earlier. So, and what we're trying to do is make it seamless for your business operations. We understand that PKI is a need within your organization, but it's not your core service. Of course, it's ours. And we want to make sure we enable our service within your environment to make sure that we can allow you to do what you do best. Next one. So let's talk about the Trust Lifecycle Manager difference. One of the leading advantages of Trust Lifecycle Manager is the unification of, like, as I mentioned, like the certificate management, the PKI services, and public trust. It's a one-stop shop. Customers have regularly spoken about the value of having a full stack solution and a single pane of glass that can depend on a seamless issuance and management structure. And that's what Trust Lifecycle Manager will bring you, that visibility into a variety of different types of certificates or PKI or issuing platforms that you have, and then be able to allow you to kind of deploy and then also remediate when there are issues within your environment. And of course, as I mentioned, PKI services increase the adoption and usability of certificate provisioning for users, devices, servers. The automated enrollment and certificate renewal allows you to close the gaps and avoid any kind of disruption of service you may have within your environment. And also increase velocity, for deployment of certificates. Now, I'm sure most of you on this call have gone through a manual process of generating a CSR, deploying it, and then deploying that in a manual fashion. And that could take hours and days. We want to kind of facilitate that quickly and make it minutes and seconds in some cases. Okay, one more, next slide. So where do we go from here, right? So we're talking about Trust Lifecycle Manager, and we're very excited about it. We really want to show you the product. So we want you to reach out to our DigiCert team to kind of talk about, so we can have some really deliberate discussions with you and your use cases, kind of similar to kind of what IBM shared with us today. We'd like to do that with you as well. And then we can also schedule a demo where we kind of show you how Trust Lifecycle Manager will satisfy your use cases within your environment, and then kind of move forward and see if we can build a stronger, tighter relationship with DigiCert. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you, Anthony. We will now take some questions. Please submit them through the Q&A option in Zoom. We'll try to address as many of them as possible in the next 10 to 15 minutes. If you're not able to get to your question, we will follow up with you afterwards. So let me start looking at the Q&A queue. It's a healthy list of questions here. The first question, I heard from, let's go from this one. Can you provide more information on how expired certificates increase the risk of third-party compromise with regards to the Equifax breach example? You can read up about the Equifax breach. There's a Government Accountability Office report, and there are multiple other reports. It does mention specifically on as to how an expired certificate on a network security device led to it. Beyond that, I would be speculating, but I can give you simple examples of how this would happen. Let's say you're using a intrusion prevention appliance or a proxy service that is doing SSL interception to look at content, and based on that, allow or deny access to a certain resource. That only works if you have the right SSL certificates. If they are expired or if they're not working, those devices essentially become blind to that network traffic and become ineffective. Next question. I think, Weber, this one's for you. There's probably two related ones. I'll try to combine them. I heard from Weber that IBM employees got certificates to connect VPN, corporate network devices. You mentioned public key invisible, but don't you think that issuing a certificate without the intervention of an employee is not allowed or prohibited? please clarify.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, let me clarify. So I think in our paradigm, digital certificate is the foundational and the enabling piece for end user service, which is Wi-Fi and VPN. The user, for all practical purposes, the desired state is I'm getting Wi-Fi connectivity to the company, I'm getting VPN. The fact that the user-friendly solution will request provision and install, configure certificate to enable this end service is totally hidden from the end user. That's one aspect of the invisible. The other thing is that it's more secure than you think, because only from managed devices, this user experience is enabled. And the way we do it, we use the SCAP protocol. We create the key pair. The private key is burned into your trusted platform module of your workstation, right? It never leaves that device, and you cannot tag that thing to another workstation anyway. It's almost like a hardware security module. So it's also very secure in that sense that, but all in all, the user does take action. The user action is not say, I need a Wi-Fi certificate. The user says that I have a IBM managed workstation. I need a Wi-Fi connectivity. In other cases, we consider this kind of connectivity a birthright access for any employee in good standing, right? So we just push it to you because as long as you work for the company, this is what you need. So these are the characters of invisible. It's not like the user without his knowledge, and without any intervention from him, we just blindly or push things onto. He's asking for a business level of services, and we are giving what he's asking with a digital certificate underneath to enable that user service.
Makes sense. Weber, it's a related question. It says, gotcha. So initial login is using AD authentication, but how would that work before you're connected to the network, or were you using Azure AD?
So I think
the chicken and egg problem, right? How do I get to the network without authentication?
Yeah, I think I understand the question. It's a great question, right? So we essentially get into the territory when we transformed our new hire onboarding experience, right? So you have to start somewhere. So in our case, then it starts with identity. That's what I meant. Identity becomes the new perimeter defense, right? You don't come to the office, plug into your laptop, get onto the network. You start from an internet connectivity, and with the factory image of a new workstation. That's where you need to be authenticated to make your device a registered device and a managed device. And when, in our case, obviously we have I'm not going to get into the particular technology. Each enterprise has an internal authentication service, identity provider. We have ours powered by IBM Security Verify or ISV. So once you using your identity and authenticate, your device become registered and managed. That's when the MDM solution I mentioned in my portion of the presentation become the delivers the magic for the certificate lifecycle management. That's when it realized that, okay, you are, this is the company managed workstation. One of the birthright accesses for any new hire is Wi-Fi and VPN. In other cases, you can go to the app store, say, hey, I need the Wi-Fi access. So you're requesting, it's packaged as like a virtual application in the app store. That's how we do it, right? So you bootstrap this with your identity. So you become, your workstation become a managed workstation. Once it becomes a managed workstation, this is considered one of the services you need will be automatically provisioned for you, or you can request it in the form of an app from the App Store.
Makes sense. We have a ton of questions, and some of them the team's answering live. It's probably 40 plus questions. So let's try to get through as many of them with short, rapid fire answers. Anthony, I'm going to direct the next few to you. Can Trust Lifecycle Manager help me with end user device and authentication enrollments?
Absolutely, right? So kind of like Weber, some of the scenarios you're talking about, like birthright access, when you're provisioning new environments, we have enrollments or auto enrollment solutions that can tie in those certificates and create some approval processes, and also tie in to your IDP, so we can authenticate those new users as they come in, and then also allow for approvals for certain IT operations or managers to kind of approve those certificates before they get deployed. And the deployment, like the invisible aspect, is we have solutions like our digital trust assistant, which is a client-based application that runs in non-privileged, as the non-privileged service within your workstation, that can not only facilitate the certificate creation and management, but the deployment to the end application, like Outlook or for your VPN connectivity, things of that nature. So we really have that full end-to-end solution that kind of supports a lot of those use cases.
Makes sense. Couple of easier questions that can be quick. Are wildcard certificates included in the solution? And a short answer, yes. Can I manage?
Although not condoned. So.
What's that?
Although not condoned, we'd much rather, multi-domain.
And then let's see. Can I manage my enterprise CA/PKI with Trust Lifecycle Manager too? How would that work?
Right. So depending on how you have your private trust deployed, if you're using like a Microsoft CA, we have the capabilities with our technology to tie in to do discovery and actually issuance from it. We have a lot of customers that are looking to kind of extend the journey and maybe even consolidate in some cases. You mentioned M&A activities. A lot of cases, the organization you're purchasing might have different technology stack and you want to kind of migrate it into one stack. TLM can facilitate those issuing flows by doing discovery of those CAs to kind of understand the certificates that were issued, and then kind of put those into an automated workflow to kind of help facilitate the re-enrollment into the new CAs. Or if you want to stay with that CA, that's fine. We can tie in using our external CA broker to kind of tie into those external CA connector to tie into those connections.
Okay. I use DigiCert and then Let's Encrypt for testing purposes and Microsoft CA. Is that something I could plug into?
Yes, but certainly Microsoft CAs and DigiCert, we can tie into TLM to kind of test that. For Let's Encrypt, we're looking here to, shortly to kind of bring that into the mix so we can support those use cases as well. But we have a lot of, if you're using Let's Encrypt for testing, I'm not sure where the use cases are, but we can certainly, on the next steps on that conversation about TLM, talk about those use cases and see if we can support those out of the gate.
Makes sense. There's a bunch of questions on, hey, we were expecting a demo. Can we see a demo? We'd love to follow up with you and give you a more targeted demo that's relevant to your use case and environment. Otherwise, it's a pretty big open-ended demo. Let's see. There's some questions on integration with ITSM systems. Can you integrate with ServiceNow?
Yes, we already have an integration with our Search Central platform with ServiceNow. We're looking to expand that to use for TLM to be able to issue the private trust as well. So the answer to that is yes.
Okay. Let's see. Do you think that the current digital certificate lifetimes will get shorter, and how will the DigiCert platform help to address this? I can quickly answer that. Yes, over time, these are getting shorter and shorter. There are some vendors like Google who are pushing for even shorter lifetimes for certificates. And all of that just points to more discovery and automation capabilities, which is the crux of what Trust Lifecycle Manager is all about.
Would you like me to add on to that a minute at all?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So when we talk about shortened validity periods, that's kind of where you want a certificate lifecycle management solution in place. So for doing user authenticated, like if you have short-lived certs that for user devices, for Wi-Fi, for example, we can facilitate that. And with our technology solutions like our DTA product or sensor technology, be able to or Acme for that matter, be able to tie and facilitate those flows. So You can, in theory, issue your publicly trusted CAs from Cert Central or private trust, however you want to, ingest those certificates into your environment in a facilitated fashion. I mean, that's the whole proliferation of different these certificates is as they get shorter, more certificates are being introduced into the enterprise. And we want to make sure you have a visibility into all those certificates in those workflows.
Makes sense. Weber, this one is for you. We have many departments that buy their own certificates. How is IBM planning to consolidate this?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and thank you for that. I think I already mentioned that we have not solved the problem to our satisfaction yet, but there's some insights I can share, right? So, the current way of acquiring TLS certificate from external well-known CAs like DigiCert is less than ideal in the sense that it's treated as like a purchasing activity. That's very time-consuming, and not great productivity, and also there's a lack of centralization and visibility. If everyone buy their own, we don't even know, who had bought what. So our direction, obviously, following my VCA principle, visibility, control, and automation, the first thing is really centralization and gain better visibility. So what we are doing over there is that we're going to centralize this with, a single corporate level of account, no matter, where you start. So at least we know, with a single supplier like DigiCert, all the one we bought is in that one account. So that's centralization for better visibility. But we're planning for more transformative things, which is really, go away from retail purchase style of acquisition to, turn this into a managed SSL subscription. So that way it will greatly simplify the process, make everybody more productive. We have some hurdles we need to hop over, how do we properly do the accounting, the billing. And then once we reach that state, the next level is obviously we discuss here automation. Once we know who has what, when what expires, then that will give us the platform to introduce automated renewable.
Do you mind if I add to that too?
Yeah, go for it.
So when we look at, in the context of Trust Lifecycle Manager, that's the beauty of the product, right? Is the discovery aspect, finding those certificates that are out of policy, so you can, instill your organizational governance on those certificates. I mean, this is a very common use case. You get certain business units or divisions that are doing rogue issuance of those certificates, and you want to align it to corporate policy. That's kind of where TLM will come into play to help facilitate those and notify the correct people to kind of remediate or rectify the situation or renew in place.
Makes sense. We'll take one last question. There are a whole bunch of other questions, which is very exciting. They are specific about this feature support or that particular integration. I'll take a broader one. This question says, how does your discovery work? And can I just make use of my existing tools, for example, Qualys?
That's a great question. So we are maturing the product so that we can actually tie into vulnerability scanning solutions, and Qualys is the one that's the big ask from a lot of our customers. So we're going to have integrations where you can take advantage of it. And we'll also have our port-based scanning solution too to do endpoint scanning to kind of pull those certificates in. So depending on what environments you're running Qualys in, you'll be able to kind of ingest those. And if you need to use our scanning solution for maybe your test environments or even production for that matter, you can do that. It could be like a hybrid approach, or just use Qualys.
Makes sense. We've come to the end of the hour. That was quick. Weber, thank you very much for making time. I'm sure our audience found your insights very useful. Anthony, thank you for giving the audience a sneak peek of Trust Lifecycle Manager. A copy of the webinar will be available on our website shortly, and we will follow up on questions that we couldn't get to during our allotted time. Thank you very much, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.